Hi everyone. In my last class, you read the story The Cop and the Anthem. Alright. So, we had not completed it. So, we'll complete part 2. And in the first part, you read that Soapy was a boy who had no money, no shelter. And since winter was approaching, so he started, looking for a place to stay in, and he thought that jail would be the best place to stay because at least his boarding and lodging would be taken care of, and therefore he decided to do something against the law so that the cops take him to the jail. And let us see whether he gets the success or not. It's very ironical. Wherever he did something, what was expected that he would go to the jail, but nothing such happened. So now let's see what happens. We go ahead a bit. Then he came to another cop standing in front of a big theater. He thought of something else to try. He began to shout as if he had too much to drink. His voice was as loud as he could make it. He danced, he cried out. So in front of a big theater, he thought by making noise he would catch the attention of the cops. And the cop turned his back to Soapy and said to a man standing near him, "It's one of those college boys. He won't hurt anything. We have orders to let them shout." So what happened? The cop did not take notice of him. He just turned his back and said to somebody that he is one of those college boys, and he won't hurt anybody. He won't hurt anything. So we have orders not to catch them, not to do anything. Just let them shout. Soapy was quiet. Was no cop going to touch him? He began to think of the island as if it were as far away as a star. He pulled his thin coat around. The wind was very cold. So when Soapy did not get caught, he started thinking, and he thought that island was a distant dream. It was as far away as the star. Island means the jail. So he pulled his thin coat around him because he was feeling cold. He wrapped his coat properly. The wind was very cold. Now, next page. Then he saw a man in a shop buying a newspaper. The man's umbrella stood beside the door. Soapy stepped inside the shop, took the umbrella and walked slowly away. The man followed him quickly. So here he thought that he would steal an umbrella and he would be caught. Let's see. "My umbrella," he said. "Oh, is it?" said Soapy. "Why don't you call a cop? I took it, your umbrella. Why don't you call a cop? There is one standing at the corner." He started persuading the man to call a cop. And he also suggested that there was a cop standing near the corner. The man walked more slowly. Soapy did the same. But he had a feeling that he was going to fail again. The cop looked at the two men. "I," said the umbrella man, "that is, you know how these things happen. If that is your umbrella, I am very sorry. I found it this morning in a restaurant. If you say it's yours, I hope you will." I mean that umbrella did not belong to that man also. That man thought that it was Soapy's umbrella, and he said, "I'm sorry, if it is yours, you can have it. I found it in a restaurant." "It's mine," cried Soapy. with anger in his voice. The umbrella man hurried away. The cop helped a lady across the street. Soapy walked east. He threw the umbrella as far as he could throw it. He talked to himself about cops and what he thought of them, because he wished to be arrested and they seemed to believe he was like a king who could do no wrong. I mean, he was just wondering why he wanted to be arrested. He was doing lots of wrong things, but he felt that the cops thought that he could do nothing wrong. So, like he was left free everywhere, and he was just wandering. So he moved towards east. At last, Soapy came to one of the quiet streets on the side of the city. He turned here and began to walk south toward Madison Square. He was going home, although home was only a seat in a park. Now Soapy came out of those, out of the quiet streets on the side of the city. See, one of the streets, he turned here and began to walk south toward Madison Square. And now he was going home. And what was his home? His home was a seat in a park, because he could sit there and spend the night. But at a very quiet corner, Soapy stopped. Here was his old childhood home. Through one window he could see a soft light shining. That had been his living room, where he had spent many happy, peaceful moments. Sweet music came to Soapy's ears and seemed to hold him there. Now Soapy came to a place where he remembered his childhood home was. And then he remembered everything. He was filled with memories. This place was shining with a soft light. There was a living room, and he had spent many peaceful moments. A sweet music was coming from there that seemed to hold him for a while. Soapy was, charmed. He stood there for a while. The moon was above, peaceful and bright. There were few people passing. He could hear birds high above him, and the music that came from the room held Soapy there, for he had known it well long ago. In those days, his life contained such things as mothers and flowers and high hopes and friends and clean thoughts and clean clothes. Now these are the things which belong to his childhood, but not now. He was just filled with memories. There was a sudden and wonderful change in his soul. He saw with sick fear how he had fallen. He saw his worthless days, his wrong desires, his dead hopes, the lost power of his mind. All of a sudden there was a change in Soapy, in his soul. He started feeling suddenly that he had fallen very low. He had stooped. He also remembered how worthless his days had been, how he had wrong desires, how he had been wishing to get wrong things, his hopes which were dead, and his lost power of mind, because he was in a different mood where he didn't want to do anything, and he wanted to go to jail in order to get shelter, food and shelter. So that was lost power of mind. Any person with respect does not do all these things. So he was filled with remorse, like how wrong he had been. So he should live a respectful life. And also in a moment his heart answered this change in his soul. He would fight to change his life. He would pull himself up out of the mud. He would make a man of himself again. Now all of a sudden he started thinking. He would fight to change his life, and he would pull himself up. He would do something worthwhile. and he would make a man of himself. He would change himself totally. There was time. He was young enough. He would find his old purpose in life and follow it. That sweet music had changed him. The sweet music of his childhood changed him totally. Tomorrow he would find work. A man had once offered him a job. He would find that man tomorrow. He would be somebody in the world. He would. Soapy felt a hand on his arm. He looked quickly around into the broad face of a cop. See, by listening to that music of his child, the soft music coming from his childhood home, that which changed him, he had a different feeling. He changed, and he found a purpose in life. He thought he would make a good man of himself. He would have a purpose. He would have a dream, and tomorrow he would find work. Somebody had offered him work, so he would find that man. And then he felt that somebody put his hand on his shoulder, and he looked back, and what he saw was broad face of a cop who had been avoiding him throughout. "What are you doing hanging around here?" asked the cop. "Nothing," said Soapy. "You think I believe that?" said the cop. Full of his new strength, Soapy began to argue. New strength? New strength was like he was encouraged to do something good. Now he started arguing with the cop. And it is not wise to argue with a New York cop. So, what happened? "Come along," said the cop. 3 months prison on Blackwell's Island, said the judge to Soapy next morning. So next morning he was given imprisonment for 3 months. Now look at this, is called irony. When he was looking for prison, he did not get it. So what he expected, that never happened. And now since he had changed his mind and he wanted to be a good person, a hardworking person, now he got 3 months prison. Great, that is the end of the story. End of reading. Now let's go to the questions. Answer the following questions. What are some of the signs of approaching winter referred to in the text? Now, you should find the answers yourself first, and then you write the answers from here. Right? So, the signs of the approaching winter are the movement of birds to warm south, the woolens needed by people, and the dead leaves covering the ground. These were the signs that winter was approaching. Now, next question. Write true or false against each of the following. Soapy did not want to go to prison. What is it? False. He wanted to go to prison. Next. Soapy had been to prison several times. Yes. What is it? True. Next. It was not possible for Soapy to survive in the city through the winter. Very true, because it was very cold. Soapy hated to answer questions of a personal nature. That is also true. What was Soapy's first plan? Why did it not work? His first plan was to go to a restaurant and eat and then tell them he had no money. They would immediately call a cop who would arrest him. But as soon as he put his foot inside the restaurant, the waiter blocked his entry. Sorry, it is blocked. ED. Put ED here. Blocked his entry. Thus his plan did not work. But the cop's mind would not consider Soapy. What did the cop not consider and why? The policeman did not believe that Soapy had broken the window glass. The reason was that no such criminal would stop and talk to a policeman. So since he stopped, nobody believed him. The cop did not believe that he had broken the window glass. We have orders to let them shout. What is the policeman referring to? So he was referring to college boys, because they are sometimes very noisy. So there were orders to make them noise and not to arrest them. The policeman means to say that he had got orders not to arrest the unruly and shouting college students. Next, write true or false against each of the following. Soapy stole a man's umbrella. Yes, true. The owner of the umbrella offered to give it to Soapy. That's also true. The man had stolen the umbrella that was now Soapy's. Yes, true. And Soapy threw away the umbrella. Yes. Now all these you can fill in your book. There was a sudden and wonderful change in his soul. What brought about the change in Soapy? Actually, the music that was coming from his while wandering, he reached the place where his old home was, and there was a soft, some sound of music coming from there, and that made him peaceful, and he started thinking. That brought a change in Soapy. So the sight of the home where Soapy had spent his childhood suddenly changed his outlook. The old memories of his mother and the sweet music revived his love for a decent life. He decided to work and become somebody in life. And that is the end of the lesson. You can write these questions, fill in the blanks in your book, and bye till then.